Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well, per usual. We are in the last week of January. This year is already going by fast. You know, I have started some of my goals, I will say. Started reading a little bit. Of course, I have the whole year, but I need to get a jump start because it's almost February already. So, you know, and soon it'll be like December again. You know how time is. It goes by fast. Also, I'm going to my first concert of the year on Sunday. I'm very excited about it. I'm also doing a meet and greet. I'm going to go see Baby Tate. She was known as Young Baby Tate before. Now she's just Baby Tate. I'm very excited. So yeah, I just want to share that. Also, the weather is just all over the place. Now it's warm and raining. Yeah, no, it is what it is, unfortunately. If you hear any loud noises, my mom is juicing or blending upstairs. I did close my door, so maybe that will help. We'll see. So all week I've been talking about, I'm going to review the new docuseries by Netflix called American Nightmare. It came out just this month on the 17th. It's a documentary, crime, mystery. Those are the genres. Technically, it's a docuseries. Did it have a Wikipedia page? It did. So this is what they said the genres were. I'm just gonna talk about the main two people as the cast. It's kind of weird because it's like a true crime show and I'm talking about the cast. But there was Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn are the main victims, basically, of this case. And the synopsis is, after a harrowing home invasion and kidnapping in 2015, a couple was accused of staging the ordeal when the woman reappears in this true crime docuseries. And then you can stream it on Netflix. That's where it's at, the only place. I'm going to give a huge, mega spoiler alert because I'm going to spoil a lot because there was a lot of stuff that made me mad about this docuseries. So I'm going to talk about some details, but of course, well, not of course, but I will say I highly recommend it just right off the bat. So still watch it, definitely. It's only 3 episodes. It's 46 minutes each episode. It's not too long. I kind of like binge watched it. I don't really binge watch things, but I watched it in like 2 days. I was gonna watch it all in one day. Like that's how it really caught my attention. So usually I talk about the pros and the cons, but I'm gonna talk about the pros and I'm gonna talk about the ways this case was fumbled. Because I didn't really have any cons about the actual docuseries per se. And it's kind of hard because I've reviewed documentaries before, but for this one I didn't really have any cons. So, but the pros are, it was very captivating. I really loved how the first episode you get Aaron by himself, because you don't know what's going on for real. You're like, this is suspicious. And the story he tells, absolutely crazy. I'm not gonna spoil the story, at least the story that he told. I'm not gonna spoil that. And when you're watching, you're like, there's no way this man really telling these people this story. You're into it, even if you have looked up the case, which I did. But you're into it because you're like, this sounds really like crazy. Like he's talking about, how these people were dressed, what they did, and it sounds suspicious. Of course, just like a lot of cases. If you watch a lot of true crime where the husband kills the wife, or the boyfriend kills the girlfriend, or the wife kills the husband, or the wife kills the boyfriend. It's kind of like, it's all suspicious. Right? Because you're like, oh, suddenly your girlfriend is missing, and then you tell this really crazy story about these kidnappers, and we're like, of course you're like suspicious. You're like, You just like the police in this case. You're like, this sounds just so off the wall. So it's really captivating, just right from the start, And of course, they do the tactics. They like, oh, we know you did something, blah, 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 which we're going to get into that. well, I have one thing I'm going to talk about with that. So let me just talk about that. Um, immediately, of course, they're suspicious of him. The story's crazy. Which to me, I'm not a detective, but it seems like it's too crazy to make up. I don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know if I was a detective, I feel like this kind of too crazy and specific. I don't know. But I'm not a detective, so I don't know, what makes them suspicious, even though, I mean, I don't know, I felt like it would be too crazy to make up to me. I'm not professional. Um, so that would be my opinion, but I'm also not an investigator, so. Um, oh, yeah, and the hearing from another pro was hearing from the victim. So Aaron had his first episode by himself, pretty much. And then the second episode, Denise, oh my gosh, it was so sad. Denise talked about her experience. Whew. It was so sad to me. Like, I was tearing up. I know. I feel like I said this like in like a couple other reviews. Like when I talk about The Color Purple, like I cried for both movies. I'm a very emotional person, but yeah, it just really tugged at my heartstrings, like what she went through and her talking about it. And then um, I'm trying to decide if I'm trying to spoil something too much or not. But basically, and then, the suspicions of her when she was returned. And then the third episode, they were both together, and, I didn't write this down, but I'm going to say, them staying together. Spoiler. I already said spoiler alert. But them staying together even after that, and I feel like it's kind of like I don't think that's really like a trauma bond, because I don't think that's the right definition of it. But basically, they went through something traumatic together and they stayed together. And I feel like I feel like it's kind of sad, but also like, they were there for each other. Um, and then another pro was hearing from the officer who solved the case, Misty Carusu, and like her empathy and her, feeling like she was determined. She found the goggles with Denise's hair on it at the kidnapper's house, and she was determined to find out who this hair belonged to. And I think I'm going to talk about this later. But let me see if I talk about this later. Okay, I talk about this later, so I'm going to hold off on that point. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about this later, so I'm gonna hold off. But yeah, it was just really endearing seeing her determination to solve this case and her determination to get justice for whoever, this hair belonged to, and justice for whatever other victims this man had. Speaking of that, let's talk about ways that they fumbled this case. Not even just starting with this case with Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn. But let's just go into the fumble. The ways they fumbled. Aaron and Denise had the same exact story, but then of course they had to be like, "Oh, your stories don't match. There's inconsistencies." To try and intimidate them, I guess. I keep getting text, y'all, so I'm looking at them. I guess to intimidate them, to try to like get them to tell the truth, what they think the truth is. And I don't think I wrote this down. I did not write this down. But the fact that the FBI agent was like, "Oh, have you seen the movie Gone Girl?" And there was no. Okay, you know what? I do think I've talked about this. So they thought she was like a Gone Girl type situation. I talked about this in my TikTok video I made, my Shorts video, my reel. They're all the same thing. They didn't have any motive for Aaron, but just for Denise. And then this whole Gone Girl thing, they don't even have like any evidence for it or anything. And it's very weird to me, because the thing about it is, why would Aaron tell this story? And they tell the same story. They try to act like they didn't, but they did tell the same story. So why would Aaron, if she's, because now at first they thought he her, but afterwards, what would his motive be if they have the same story? Which they try to act like they didn't, but they did. Um, so what was his motive after that? If they have the same story, or did they think that she set him up to think that she was kidnapped? Um, which they had no evidence about that either, because they talk about it in the once I can't remember if they no once the actual kidnapper got arrested, then they released the affidavit, and I can't remember if they talked about like any evidence they had for like the Gone Girl theory, but oh, this is one of the things they fumbled, the lie detector results. So they gave Aaron a lie detector, and the guy said, now mind you, I think he had just like unhooked Aaron from the machine. It was like, I'm pretty sure you failed, and the results were like unconclusive. So they lied about that because I guess they wanted to like get him to confess or whatever. Which that there was, so that was another fumble. Okay, let's go to the next fumble. The guy they caught, Matthew Muller, I think that was his name, had prior offenses he'd been caught for but wasn't charged for. And so he was like a peeping Tom. I forgot what the name of the island was, but it was like an island in California, and they called him the whatever something island peeping Tom. So he'd been looking in people's windows, taking pictures of them, and some college kids, they were like, you know what, we're gonna find out who this is. Followed him to the house. The cops ain't do nothing. Followed the man to the house so they know his address, and nothing happened to him in that case. That is absolutely insane to me. It really, really is. You got this man being peeping Tom. I'm presuming, I think he was like stalking people or something as well. He was calling them like the southern, I forgot what the island name, but we're gonna call him the island creeper. You know what I mean? And they didn't do anything about that. That's crazy to me. What else? Similar crimes that happened in other counties, which I mean, okay, I guess you guys don't talk to each other, maybe. So you might not notice a pattern at first. But if they had stopped trying to focus on Denise and Aaron, which I'm like once again, I don't know what they're going to charge Aaron with, but mainly Denise, I will say. They could have found some similarities, and and different things that were happening around the state. You know what I mean? They turned off Aaron's phone. They put it in airplane mode, and he got 2 calls from the location where Denise was being held hostage, was kidnapped to. I don't know if it'd be hostage, because I guess you would have to have the police come and get the hostage, so it would make it a hostage situation. You know what I mean? But they missed 2 of the calls because it was in airplane mode. They didn't take it off airplane mode. And they were coming exactly from the location where Denise said she was kidnapped. Like how she described it. And that's just crazy to me. Why would you put his phone in airplane mode? I've never heard of a case where they're like, yeah, we're just gonna put their phone in airplane mode. I feel like they just, if you think somebody's like a murderer or whatever, wouldn't you leave it on? Because maybe somebody will be like, oh, we put the body, or they have some kind of code. Maybe they send some kind of code and you can decipher it. But if you don't get a text message or the phone call, how are you gonna investigate? I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me. That was weird. What else? Okay, I talked about the lie detector. Breaking into so there was another victim, I forgot her name, but there was another break-in, but they tried to act like that lady, I talked about it in my short video, was just crazy. Like, she just imagined that. And they asked her boyfriend at the time, did she like make up stuff? And she had zip tie marks on her hands, on her wrist. And they didn't do anything about that. So then he just kept doing it until he finally got caught. Oh my God. What are we paying our tax dollars for? For them to get Hellcat SRTs, like Sexy Red, to zoom around town, not helping. And why was Andrea originally the target? Like I said, I already said spoiler alert, but why was Andrea originally the target? That just sounded weird to me. And Mueller never revealed why. And another thing about Andrea, this was Aaron's ex-girlfriend. So they thought he had been texting the ex-girlfriend, Aaron. So they thought that he killed Denise to be with the ex-girlfriend. That's what they're thinking at first. Um, and then one of the officers on the case was Andrea's ex. But they decided, the judge was like, oh, this is fine. He can stay on the case, even though it's a conflict of interest. Yeah, so that was crazy as well, because maybe because Aaron, I mean, I think Andrea said that she thought that they maybe might get back together. So then it, it was weird. Um, yeah, and I can't believe a judge was like, "Oh no, this is fine." Like, I don't know. That's so weird to me. Um, and then when they had revealed there was more than one person they heard, and there was more than one person that Denise had heard at that Matthew Miller's house. They didn't look for anybody else. They were like, oh, it's just Matthew Miller. And who knows? These other people could be out still doing the same thing. And they over there telling these victims that they're daydreaming about it. Whew. This case made me so mad. I will say, this kind of reminded me of the documentary I Dr. in Plain Sight. Except I had to keep pausing that one because I was like, there's no way y'all are this stupid and irresponsible and terrible parents. Which maybe I'll talk about that one day. I don't know if I'll watch that because I was so mad. But yeah, I was also mad for these people. And I was just thinking, I was going to make a video about it, but I'm going to mention it now. This was a white couple. Blonde woman. He's a brunette. Very all-American looking. Could you imagine if this was like a black or a brown couple? Like, I think Misty, she's, the detective Misty, I think she's Hispanic. So maybe she would have still been empathetic. But if she had found, instead of blonde hair, what if she found like a hair like mine? Like a curly, tight curled black hair? Would it have made a difference? Or a wig hair? Or, any kind of thing. Yeah, I could not imagine this have been a black and a brown couple. Or black or brown couple, or a lesbian couple, or a gay couple, or any other thing other than a white straight couple. And they got ran through the ringer. Denise was showing messages she got on Facebook talking about people said she should be killed and all these things. Why would you say someone should be killed if you think they faked a kidnapping? Which is crazy to me. And then them announcing, I did not put this on there, them announcing, oh yeah, they wasted our resources. Y'all didn't investigate nothing. What do you mean? They hadn't even talked to Denise yet when she got back, when she was released from the kidnapper. And then, I didn't talk about this. I didn't write this down either. The guy who kidnapped her had all of these addresses of all these other crimes that he had committed in the GPS. This is crazy. So if they had not put Aaron's phone on airplane mode, who knows? They could have got Denise sooner. There's something that happens, but I don't want to. Look, I've already spoiled a lot. But they could have stopped something from happening 2 times to her, something bad. It's just crazy. So I'm going to give my overall opinion. I will say the telling of this case is very compelling. I talked about seeing Aaron's perspective of the first episode. You are suspicious because it sounds, the story sounds far-fetched. It sounds insane. But seeing Denise's second episode made me so sad for her, like I said. Hearing what she had to go through in her own words was heart-wrenching. The third episode, seeing things from both of their perspectives and how the case was fumbled, was so disheartening. Oh, and also them talking about, I don't want to spoil everything. Them talking about, them basically going into hiding because people think they just made all this story up, and it's just crazy. And there were some things. Now I guess they were like they had sent the case to the FBI, so they weren't really talking about the case. But the kidnapper did some things, and they didn't really mention it at first. But there was some evidence that they did not make public to make, tell the public like about these things. I mean, I guess until now, I'm not sure if the case they revealed some things that they had missed. And the officer, I think his name was Mustard, Detective Mustard. He got Officer of the Year that year. Let me not spoil everything, but just so incompetent. Okay, anyway. And so, yeah, and then the police had no evidence to charge either one of them, just circumstantial evidence, which I know you can get convicted on circumstantial evidence. I know, I watch a lot of crime shows, but they had nothing concrete, okay? But I still feel like you need something, like something. Yeah, because one thing that with their Gone Girl theory that would not make sense is why did Aaron call the police then? I guess he could report her missing, but, with all of the details, I don't know, it just did not make any sense. Yeah, and they were trying to use the movie Gone Girl as evidence. Ugh. Which, I guess I know, detectives are skeptical of everyone. I guess that's part of the profession, but it's just crazy. Okay. Oh, I loved hearing from Detective Misty. I talked about that, how empathetic she was. And I think a lot of sexual assault victims and could probably relate to how terrible the male detectives and police officers were that handled cases like Denise's. Because I've heard so many cases where it's like, oh, and it took a woman to look out for another woman and not dismiss her. And the police officers spent so much time being suspicious of the couple without any evidence against them instead of actually looking for real evidence, which pissed me off. And I've heard so many women talk about not just them being sexually assaulted, which Denise talked about in the documentary. It's like she got talked out of reporting I'm going to talk about that later. Let me hold on for that. I could talk about things like too early. But I would highly recommend watching this. It's hard to give it a rating because it's like a true story. I don't know. But especially of this nature, like if it was like I don't know. I've given documentaries like ratings before, but I'm just gonna recommend it. The story was told thoroughly besides like some things that I mentioned, and it was great the couple was finally able to get justice because those officers just fumbled so many things. It was crazy. I'm gonna go on a little rant now. So it's called The Right Way Rant. I hate it when people share their stories of sexual assault online. People respond, what are we supposed to do about it? Or did you report them? Or this isn't the right way to handle this. Which, as we can see from this case and others' experiences, even when you do things the right way, not everything goes your way. For example, this is what I was about to talk about too early. In the Docuseries, Denise had been sexually assaulted multiple times. The first time she went to report it, it was actually the second time in her life that she had been sexually assaulted. The second time that she wanted to report it, the officer basically talked you out of it because he said it would be a he said, she said. So you're coming to the police station to report someone, and the person you're trying to report them to is like, we'll just talk you out of it. Speaking of that, oh my gosh, I was just on Twitter, and apparently someone had talked about someone else's sexual assault story where they went to report it at the police station. The police officer called the rapist. It was like, hey, did you do this? What do you mean, hey, did you do this? You think that somebody is going to be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll go to jail. That is crazy. And then we see really famous cases like Brock Turner, where he was caught red-handed, 6 months. which is nothing. Talking about you don't want him to, you don't want his life to be ruined. What about the victim? It's crazy. And I've also heard other stories where women have had their house broken into, and police have been like, "Oh, are you sure? Am I sure that some stranger came into my house?" Yes, I'm sure. Ooh, you've been making me mad. Uh, and even in my own experiences, I did report one of my somebody who sexually abused me as a child when I was an adult. And even though at least, which is crazy to say, at least in my case, they did believe me, but without, evidence. They said it would be he said, she said, so they did not, prosecute. Um, so it's like, even when you do things the right way, like, I went to the police. A lot of women, and I'm sure a lot of men as well, go to the police, and what happens? Sometimes nothing. If Detective Misty had not made all those connections and got basically obsessed with the case, pretty much, where would she be right? Where would Denise be? Still in hiding, probably. And like I said, that's a white woman. Okay, she looks like the stereotypical standard of beauty for like all of the world. Okay, that's crazy to me. Um. So yeah, I had the same thing happen. So they did not press charges for that reason. And I could say at least I was believed because a lot of people who report the sexual assault and abuse aren't believed, which is just sad to me. And people talk about false cases. False cases are so low. It's such a low percentage. Um, yeah, and it took a female detective to finally, look into the case and solve it, which was just like, just so crazy to me. And then, like I've already talked about, the other victim who they asked, "Did you dream that somebody broke into your house?" Whew. And I think people are learning, unfortunately, that police officers aren't really there to help, or they only investigate once you get killed. Once you're dead, then they're like, "Oh, we gotta investigate who killed you," basically. And even if you, do get sexually assaulted, then you gotta prove that you got sexually assaulted, which somebody talked about on Twitter today, which is just crazy. And you think people in certain professions go into certain professions to help, but a lot go into them for power and control. I've learned about police officers, nurses, doctors, all these things you think, oh, people care about other people. Maybe they don't. Unfortunately, I'm learning that more and more each day. It's really disheartening to think about. A lot of people want to be helped, but only get accused or not believed. So then, now they're accusing you. Oh, this reminds me of another story. This was so crazy. I saw this a couple months ago. This little girl, she was like 16, 15, basically got preyed on by an adult and sent, unfortunately, sexual pictures. And the police officers, wanted to, her parents wanted the police officers to come and tell her, like, how to have online safety, basically. And the police officers were like, well, we could charge your daughter for child porn. What? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so even if you do things the right way, just like all of these things that people have talked about and this case, you may not get the justice you deserve, unfortunately. And maybe you'll get accused of something, which is crazy to me, especially for a child. In that last story I just told, you think you're gonna charge a child with child porn when a grown person asked her for these pictures, and you don't? What are you gonna do with a grown person? And I can't remember if it was like an anonymous person, like if they were on chat rooms or where they were, but it's just very super disheartening that women, even men, and children are not believed. When they come forward with their sexual assaults, and a lot of men also probably feel ashamed. So then there's also that, and then there's other men who are not even sympathetic to other men. They only want to bring up other men as victims to downplay women's sexual assault experiences and other forms of violence. Um, so yeah, I mean, I recommend watching this, but you're gonna be angry. I know I told you a lot, but seeing it actually, like how things actually played out, is very captivating. So I highly recommend watching it. And next week will be Black History Month, so my people. So it's gonna be blackety black, of course, right? Duh, I'm black. It has to be black. Um, so yeah, I will see you all next week and next month.